And we will now do the patriotic exercise. And tonight we have Jerry Fung from 5th grade at Lincoln. Welcome.
Hello, my name is Jerry Fung. I am a Lincoln Line in 5th grade. My teacher is Ms. Glover. My favorite subject in school is math. I like solving multiplication problems. What I do outside of school is play football. I'm on the Burlingame football team. My favorite football team is the 49ers, and my favorite player is Jerry Rice. Please stand for your right to be over your heart. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Jerry?
Ready? 1, 2, 3. Say you're looking at me and then we'll let it. 1, 2, 3. Okay, now you can look at me. 1, 2, 3. Did you get it done?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Thank you, Jerry. All right. Trustee Brown.
Here.
Trustee DeVoy.
Here.
Trustee Wong.
Here.
Trustee Glavine. Here. Excellent. All right, and now on to approval of the agenda. Is there anyone that would like to approve tonight's agenda?
I move to approve.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, and item number 9, approval of minutes from August 8th, 2023. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve the minutes from August?
I'll move to approve the minutes from August.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And public statements related to agenda items.
Is this an agenda item? Yeah.
Hello, hi, Mr. Singer. Coming up.
Oh, hi.
Well, that
Nope.
would be during.
It's afterward. Sorry. Sorry for the false alarm. Okay. So we'll have him come up when we get to the summer item.
That's
Okay.
correct.
So sorry, Mr. Singer, you probably knew that.
Uh,
So when we get to the summer report.
Thank you.
All right, and item 11, union statement, Burlingame Education Association. Do we have anyone here tonight? Hello.
Hi, good evening. My name is Stephanie Talbot, and I am a BEA member as well as a teacher at Washington Elementary School. Thank you for having me tonight. I'm here to represent BEA, Burlingame Education Association. We wanted to start off by thanking our new superintendent, Dr. Silver Smith, for a welcoming start to our school year. There have been a lot of communication out to us, which we appreciate, and there's been a lot of support for the Burlingame Blue, which we're excited for. Over the summer, many BEA members had the opportunity to teach at the Full Steam Ahead program with Ms. Von Husen. We appreciated the opportunity to teach over summer and engage students with the Joe Bowler math curriculum, as well as STEAM projects. We'll hear more about it later this evening. We are hoping this program continues each summer to support our students over summer break. Lastly, we would like to thank BCE for providing breakfast and lunch during our 2 professional development days before the start of the school year. It kept our bellies full and our minds very focused. We are looking forward to another exciting school year. Thank you.
Thank you. And tonight we have a union statement from CSEA as well. Do we have a CSEA representative tonight? Okay. My name is Laurie Sue and I work at the Elementary School. But I'm not going to talk about summer school. I just want to introduce myself to the board and also talk about what we have accomplished in the past year. Okay, good evening to the public and the members of the board. I am Laurie Sue, the president of the Classified Employees Union CSEA Burlingame Chapter 46. We represent the support staff throughout the district, from secretaries to custodians, parent educators to IT technicians, maintenance workers, and our non-management analysts and specialists at the district office. We're proud to start this year with a new contract, which we finished bargaining last spring. We now have fully paid single-party health insurance for all our members who work 6 hours and above, a summer assistant savings program, which allows our members to take home up to 10% additional through state matching dollars. And we have new protections in place to reduce the number of involuntary transfers our members experience from site to site. We're hoping to build on this work. We're hoping to build on this work this year with a new district leadership team headed by our superintendent, Marla Silverstead. Marla has already established a collaborative and respectful relationship with our union, and we appreciate efforts to include CSEA and the district's decision making. I hope to come before you every so often to speak to you about the needs of classified employees and our families, and about the essential roles we play in serving the students and community in Burlingame. I'm also happy to connect individually with any of you to invite you to our chapter meetings and meet our amazing CSEA union labor representative, Destin Cananelli. You will also have the opportunity to meet our members, share your vision from the district or the district, and field questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for your years of service. I saw your name outside on the banner today. You're welcome.
Okay, and statement of principle.
Is that me? Okay.
Good evening, President Mund, trustees, Superintendent Silversmith, Cabinet. My name is Katie Von Heusen, principal on special assignment, and I typically represent myself to students as I'm the principal with no school, or conversely, I'm the principal with all of the schools. So I have the lucky good fortune of being able to see the breadth and depth of the wonderful things that are offered to our Burlingame scholars almost on a daily basis. What I wanted to mention to you today was building on what Ms. Talbot talked about, was the professional learning work. We, during those 2 days, conquered topics as wide and varied as mathematical strategies to diving into our new data platform, Performance Matters. Different this year is we tapped several of our teacher experts to do presentations and to facilitate discussions with their peers. You're going to hear from 2 of them today, teachers that worked in the summer with the Joe Bowler Band, and they were part of a team of 3 that presented with SMCOE to our 3rd through 5th grade teachers on mathematical mindset and different math engagement strategies. So again, our thanks to BCE for that wonderful opportunity where we all get to kind of assemble and remind ourselves that in addition to being teachers, we're always learning. Thank you.
Okay, and statement of Dr. Marla Silversmith, superintendent.
Such a great crowd. It's amazing to see all these wonderful faces. Thank you everyone for being here tonight. It has been a wonderful start to this school year. And I just want to piggyback and say thank you so much to BCE for the 2 wonderful start days to professional learning. It was a great start to be able to come together and enjoy each other and get to know each other, and having that time to be able to enjoy each other and then really get to have a great start to be able to have time to learn about math and dive deep into looking at assessments and online platforms. As you drive down Truesdale, 1825 Truesdale, please enjoy the years of service. We are very proud to hang 6 banners that signify our wonderful staff that incorporate classified, certificated, and administrative people that have worked in 5-year increments, going all the way up to 50+ years. Those will hang there all year long. We were able to hang them for our first 2 years of professional learning when we all got to come back together, and they will hang there all year long celebrating everybody. So thank you for all that wonderful time for what everybody has done. That will be our first year, and every year going forward, we will continue to do that. So if you are currently earning your 5th year of service, your name will be up on the 5th year next year. So again, that was a pretty awesome start. It was great seeing people take pictures and honoring each other. And it's very exciting to start that out. We also have incorporated a new launch into our safety. So you will see people at the district office all have these awesome new blue safety vests, and our board will also be having them, which in the front has our badge and our cards, and then on the back has our name. So as we go out to sites and support our sites, we're able to also be identified. So if something happens, or if we're out for fire drills, Lincoln had a fire drills today. So I don't know if the Lincoln rep was out there. We'll be out there helping to support. So as we continue to dive deeper into safety and supporting, and we've also reenacted our safety committee, we're out there helping to support. So we're really excited to do that. At a district level, we are also taking on Think Again, and all of our board members received our Think Again book. So as we continue to talk about at our launch this year, we talked about remember who you are, where you've come from, better together and better tomorrow, and that we're going to think again. And we talked about really thinking again about what we've done. Why do we always do that? And do we need to continue to do that? Can we do it differently? And so as we're continuing to really think again about our practices, we are reading this book as a team. And our first chapter was prologue, where they talk about leaving, what tools do you leave behind? And as a leadership team, we talked about the macro being the district, the meso being the site, and the micro being classrooms. And so we will write about this. You will see me write about it on my Instagram. I Superintendent Silversmith, you're welcome to read along with us. You're welcome to write to me about it and tell me what you think we should rethink. But we're really looking forward to having those conversations publicly and throughout. And one of the things I'm trying to leave behind as a leader is my desk. So I'm trying to be out more. So if you've been at Franklin, I'm trying to be there a lot. I am trying to be out really present as much as I can be. It's amazing with a computer because this makes a really portable desk. So I am trying to be out as much as I can be because that's very important to me. So that is one of my commitments this year. Friday, we are reading chapter 1. So if you want to read along with us, please do. I will be updating that as we go through this year in my superintendent's report out, but I would love to take you all on that journey with me as I continue to rethink who I am and what I'm doing this year. So thank you, appreciate that.
Thank you. All right, statement of board members. Trustee Brown, would you like to start us off?
Nothing.
Trustee Wood? I will follow suit. Okay. Well, I will just say we opened our school doors once again, and we're off to a great start this school year, and open houses have begun, and I think BIS is this week. Elementary school has already gone, and it's been a great start. So thank you for all the hard work that everyone has put into making this year great.
BIS is next week, this BHS is this week. No, right?
BHS.
Oh, it's next, last week,
Yeah.
sorry, yep, sorry, I'm off a week. I'm off a week. Sorry. I'm off a week.
We've already had this conversation with my husband. Okay, all right. Anyway, moving on. Moving on to the consent agenda, which is second. The consent agenda is a way to consolidate many items considered by the board to be routine business. These items often require approval, but do not need discussion. All trustees have reviewed the items in advance of the board meeting.
Members of the board, staff, or public are able to request specific items to be discussed and removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda. The superintendent and staff recommend approval of all consent items. Movement of any suggested consent item is appropriate at this time. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve or pull something from the consent agenda?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
I don't second. All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Item 18, education. 18A, summer learning 2023 is an informational item. So would Mr. Singer come up before or after?
Superintendent Silversmith, we do the presentation, then the public, and then the board, correct?
Okay, so, okay.
Good evening, everyone. First, I'd like to introduce our speakers. We have Wolfgang Houston. We have Tara Cook, who is our RTI specialist. We have Maestro Jorge Landano, who is our DLI teacher at McKinley. So thank you for being here. I am honored because I had the opportunity to observe the wonderful learning, and we appreciate you sharing the information with us tonight.
All right. Again, good evening, trustees, President Mudd, Superintendent Silversmith, Cabinet and Community. My name is Katie Von Husen-Steele, and I'm the principal on special assignment for the Burlingame School District. Tonight, we will be presenting you with information about our summer school program. As one who enjoys talking, but knowing that you really want to hear from the experts, I've invited Jorge Londoño, the grade DLI teacher at McKinley, who worked with our 5th grade students, our rising 5th graders like Jerry Fung, Tara Cook, our RTI specialist for Franklin and McKinley, who worked with our middle school kids because that's just what she can do. Now on to, and I'm going to ask Senior Londoño, will you advance and I let you know? Yes. I also find it helpful to provide a frame for my thinking when devising a presentation. So I chose the typical who, what, when, where, why, how framework in slightly different order. So next slide, please. Just as a refresher, the Expanded Learning Opportunities Program grant, or ELOP, provides funding to increase instructional time for unduplicated students. That is, students who are English learners, students who are eligible for free or reduced lunch, and students in the foster care system. And the goal of those monies from the state is to add additional school days to their calendar and 3 additional hours of instructional time during the school year. So what we're focusing on is 20 of the 30 days for the 23-24 school year that we offer during the summer. So the when, the who, what, when, where, why, and how, and July 10th through August 4th. I was going for a period of time that was uninterrupted by holidays like Juneteenth and July 4th. I wanted to try for 20 contiguous days, as opposed to sending them home for a day and then expecting a full group to come back from vacation. Next slide, please. So the where, you probably recognize BIS and Franklin. We provided instruction for elementary students at Franklin. This included step up to kinder students who the program addresses the needs of students who haven't yet attended public school, either in TK or K. Mrs. Talbot, who spoke earlier, was one of our step up to kinder instructors. There she is. Elementary students were also at Franklin, those who had completed TK and K through 4th grade. We taught our rising 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students at BIS. We wanted to give our rising 5th grade students especially an experience of secondary campus and also provide our littlest scholars with appropriate facilities. So the Franklin BIS continuum was perfect for us staff to travel between the 2 groups, so we could have essentially 2 programs running simultaneously. Now, the WHO, 285 students this year crossed our doors for at least one day, if not more. Our average daily attendance was. It's saying that. Our average daily attendance was 250 students per day. And you can see how that broke down in terms of the age group of their attendance. What I wanted to say is the intention and goal was to provide unduplicated students some of those required additional days. We offered our qualifying student spots first. And out of 700 eligible families of students that are unduplicated, we had 201 applications submitted with 182 students actually attending. So that means that the percentage of applications to actually showing up on our doors was about 90% for our ELOP students. Interestingly enough, for the total group, people who applied and showed up, it was only about 82%. So to me, that shows that our ELOP families are hungry for this support, for this extra time for our students. I believe next. Oh, I did want to mention that we did offer a second priority spots that weren't quite filled up to students that were recommended by teachers as needing that extra support during summer to mitigate any summer learning loss. Next slide, please. I just wanted to know exactly who we were serving in our ELOP program. So of the students that came to school, I kind of broke that down. Demographic. I broke it down by ethnic groups, just so that we have a really clear visual of who the students that we're serving with our ELOP grant monies are providing support. A second part of our who is the superstar staff. We employed 21 classroom teachers, 2 music and theater arts teachers, 2 roving support teachers who were kept busy all summer long due to issues that arise, and we had that extra support there to make sure that services to students were uninterrupted. Of course, without classified support, we would be nowhere, and we had full-time support in our office, as well as 6 classroom support aides to support access for students with disabilities that needed that extra support in the classroom. And it was extremely important to have one of our mental health support personnel on campus at all times. Ms. Gann was there, and our students needed the support, and she was there to give it. Next slide, please. There, that's the one now. Perfect. So the what was something that you heard about. The Joe Bowler summer camp curriculum was done in the morning before lunch. The morning program, well, Joe Bowler, if you don't know, is a professor of mathematics education at Stanford University School of Education. And the focus for her summer camp curriculum is on algebraic problem solving, visualization of math, and connecting representations and ideas. The learning and work of the summer has set all of our learners up for success, but it has become part of the larger picture of professional learning for our staff. When I mentioned Jorge Londoño and Tara Cook were 2 of the 3 staff members that did presentations during our professional learning days in August. Next slide, please. And I'm going to turn the mic over again to the expert. Ms. Cook is going to address the enrichment portion, the afternoons of our summer days. Next slide. Oh, did we? Oh, we didn't play. We should play. This was actual video that I took, and I told the kids, I can't use this if you look at me. So they studiously kept their heads down, but you can see some of the hands-on work in action as it's thinking. That is there for your perusal and is available But we shall progress so that we're not all staring empty-faced at a thing that's not loading. Okay.
Good evening, my name is Jorge Antonio and I teach the third grade dual immersion program at McKinley. This is my second year working for the district and I'm really happy to be here. This summer I have the opportunity to work with our fifth graders on the Joe Boulder summer camp. And let me say it was great because it was a different opportunity to have the kids work and teaching them growth mindset. A lot of the kids came with the idea that they were not good at math and that some people are good at math and some people are not good at math, and we were trying to change that naturally. And I think by the end of these 4 weeks, they were thinking, yeah, we can do this because we were able to accomplish everything we could during these 4 weeks. And what I wanted to tell you is like, yeah, this program has a lot of visual, a lot of connections, a lot of algebraic thinking, and overall the growth mindset where the kids think they can do whatever they put their minds into it. And that's what we did. So it was a very successful summer camp, and I hope we get to offer it this coming summer because I feel a lot of kids benefited from it. And I'm actually using it in my classroom right now with my third graders, and it's been also very successful for them. And they love it. It's very engaging, and it brings a lot of good things to the table. Okay.
So I'm going to talk to you about the afternoons, the part 2s. So my name is Tara Cook. I'm an RTI specialist and I work between Franklin and McKinley. Good evening, trustees, President Mudd, and Superintendent Silverstein. So I was at the middle school level, which is quite an interesting age, but we had a class as well. So in the afternoons, K through 8, they all had different levels. They all had different activities that were going on that were age appropriate. They were anything from art, mindfulness, gardening, planting, yoga, engineering, eco-friendly creation, STEM, and science experiments. The full scheme ahead teachers really took the time to plan out age appropriate and engaging activities for the duration of that whole 4-week period. So for example, 1st and 2nd grade, they rotated in the afternoons, and some of the activities included building with clay, painting, mindfulness, yoga, gardening. Ceramics, making marble mazes, creating art. Also had sessions dedicated to reviewing the zones of regulation, learning about the brain structure and what each part of the brain controls, conflict resolution strategies, and incorporated art to match these new learnings. At the middle school level, grades 6 through 8, students were given a variety of afternoon options as well. Some included the engineering design process, such as learning how the Golden Gate Bridge was built, paper airplane design, basket weaving, chemistry, such as learning how to use spherification to make popping boba from fruit juices. That was my class. Making different types of slime and bouncy balls, STEM challenges, building roller coasters from pool tubes, making their own pinball machines, building a mechanical hand, building a solar oven capable of reaching 45 degrees Celsius so it would melt the marshmallows and chocolate for their s'mores. And they also had the opportunity to participate in the arts, such as dramatic theater, creating masks and costumes, watercolor and pastel painting, making piñatas, dance, weaving art designs, and making friendship bracelets. And those were all the offerings done by just the afternoon by the school teachers. In addition to those, we had music and theater sessions throughout the school week that were K through 8. So for the TK through 2nd grades, they practiced rhythm and creative movement with scarf dancing. They also practiced mindfulness and breathing exercises and simple yoga poses. In addition, they learned literacy through music chants, rhythm note reading, and exploring their voice through song and games. They also were able to make their own musical instruments to take home, which were rain sticks and shakers. For the 3rd and 4th graders, they played improv and theater games to practice making eye contact, being present in the moment, and trusting their instincts. They also incorporated rhythm and movement games and learned some multiplication songs to go along with them. 3rd grade also learned how to play the recorder and learn rhythm note reading. The 5th through 8th grades, they practiced storytelling through Tableau and also played improv games. They explored the art of composition and created their own original songs and jingles using several different computer composition software programs. So as you can see, the afternoon enrichment programs offered were well thought out, appealing, educational, and extremely engaging student attendees.
You did quite well. And so now we're going on to the next slide, which is our why. And the why, of course, is to improve students' outcomes. Now, we decided to assist in the pilot of Math Annex as a possible math assessment for all of our 3rd through 8th grade students. Although the Math Annex assessments are designed to be given 3 times a year and have longer periods of instruction in between, we found some nuggets of growth to share. Please keep in mind that this assessment is designed to show student capacity in 3 categories: knowledge, basically knowing how to make numbers work; application, applying that knowledge to problems or word problems or story problems; and then communication, being able to express in writing how they arrived at a particular math answer. Additionally, Math Annex staff provided analysis student strengths that teachers can build upon. I'm again going to pass this over to Senor Londoño to talk about the content and his use of it, because he also piloted it last spring. And then Nate is here to answer any questions and speak to kind of the data that I provided for you and what it was that it was showing.
What I like about this particular assessment is that they test the kids in different categories, but they use that test and they analyze it to try to find the ways kids work on the answers. Because a lot of the times, all the tests or all the assessment the kids take is like either right or wrong, but this assessment pretty much takes into consideration everything the kids know. And not only their answer, but how do they get to the answer is the most important question. And then they give us that feedback. So I piloted this program in April with my class from last year. And a lot of the information that I got was very useful because a lot of the kids were actually, even if they got the answer wrong, the way they got to the answer was what eye-opening for me, because I could see what they were doing with the question. And a lot of times it was probably the wording of the question and not the content. They knew how to add, multiply, divide. Sometimes it was the way the question was worded. So the beauty of this program or this assessment is that it gives back to our teachers the opportunity to see all the ways kids work on math and not only the answer. And that way it provides us with that feedback so that we can modify instructions and see what we need to target, and we need to work with the kids, not only right or wrong, but how do they get to the answers and how we can help them more. We also used it during summer school. We did a pre-assessment and post-assessment, and that was also very useful because we could utilize that information to modify our instruction during summertime so that it could benefit our kids. Thank you.
Any questions about this assessment?
How are you going to track throughout the school year these same students? Will they do similar assessments or something different, or do they not get assessed in the regular academic year?
Yeah, that's a great question. So right now, we piloted this. We haven't adopted it fully for the current school year yet. But we're in discussion about it still. Got a lot of great feedback from teachers. So if we do end up adopting it, then the students will take this assessment again 2 to 3 times during the school year.
And those will be the same students that were in this program?
Actually, we're considering all students as a possibility, and including the students that took it. So we would actually be able to continue tracking that. But the idea, is that this is aligned to our new math curriculum, which is illustrated math, and also aligned to the state testing fairly well. So,
I was going to ask you, how does this correlate to the CAS test?
Yeah, so it's very predictive actually, and based on the data that I've been shown, it's very correlated. So how students are doing on this will is very predictive of how they will do on the CAS. And the beautiful thing about this is we would actually get, instead of having to wait all the way till the winter or, late fall, winter to get data on our math data, we would get this data back by the end of the school year. So we would actually be going into summer already knowing kind of where our kids, kind of what to expect from our CAS data. So there's, it won't be a surprise.
You mentioned it's still being considered if there will be assessment, who's making that decision and what goes into that?
Sure, yeah, good question. We've had several teachers pilot it, and we also had, we've had this company come and talk to us, to our assessment committee, throughout, last year. Myself and one of our principals have also gone to the county to talk to our math consortium there about this, program. And right now, we're just kind of in the final stages of making sure that our assessment committee is fully on board with adopting this. And
The assessment,
that's
who's on that committee?
so it's kind of it's kind of titled RTI/assessment committee, and RTI stands for response to intervention, which is kind of our middle tier of instruction. So that's students that need extra support but aren't qualified for special education. And they do a lot of assessment, which is why they are heavily involved in that. And right now, since we've gotten teacher feedback, we're focusing on site leadership and getting feedback from them. So the site leadership that is part of that committee, I think, yes.
Principal Ashtar, Principal Lawrence.
Yeah, Principal Ashtar, Principal Lawrence, and then Principal Lawrence.
And there's general ed teachers on that committee too, correct?
Yes, yes. Yes.
If for whatever reason decided not to assess as the school year goes along, are you able to determine if this program was successful?
Sorry.
If you don't assess, how will you determine if the program was successful?
Right. So, okay, I'll let Katie answer this.
My plan, as I spoke to in January, is Jerry's phone, for instance, was one of our Mr. Londoño's math students over the summer. I want to track the folks that had above a certain attendance percentage, say above 75%, and just look at how they're doing in all of their assessments, English language arts, and figuring out a way to get, if we don't have this, some kind of common data point that I can inquire to from their teachers, maybe using Performance Matters as a way to pull that data. Part of the joy of working with Ms. Cook is data is her thing. So I would probably utilize her to figure out different data points that could track how our summer school students do.
Judy, Ms. Cook, can you maybe explain all the other built-in assessments that we already have beyond just this? That like at the end of last year that we would have given our students, and all the built-in assessments that we onboard students with. That's why we have like early releases and stuff that our students are already getting, that maybe that might also help. So that we already are giving students.
Yes, we're giving the students a lot of literacy assessments. So we have a phonics screener. We give it's like a running record that measures how they can read words per minute and comprehension. We give a dictation portion. Gosh, we cover every area. We literally went through and wanted to figure out how we cover every area of literacy to measure where a student is starting out the school year, and we give those measurements 3 times a year. RTI gives a set called the DIBELS. That's what we assess, and then the teachers give this round of assessments as well. So we literally have, it's almost like double back to make sure we've covered every base. And if they flag anywhere, we have additional assessments we can give. I don't know if that explains it.
And then also in math, like so K2, there would be iReady that's built in at the end of last year and the beginning of this year. And then also in IM math, they would have their own benchmark assessments too, that are built in that are different than just mathematics too.
Yes,
there's those assessments too that we should be able to pull.
Yeah, iReady, which I actually learned how to pull this last week, is we can actually go through the history and pull iReady assessments for K2. For IM, it's a little more difficult. We're hoping to find something that's more online. It is more of a paper pencil thing right now, and so we have to just rely on test scores from teachers. I would love to see an online version of something being posted. That's my
why you're looking at mathematics. But
I would love to see something else.
Yeah,
that's better to monitor math. Because I'd say right now a lot of it is we see the instruction, but it's really hard to assess third on up because we don't have an official assessment for math this time.
And actually, kind of to further that, the IM assessments that we have as part of the curriculum are more kind of unit-based assessments. So it's kind of, based on the last couple weeks of instruction, how are the students grasping the material? Whereas Math Annex is more of the work of the grade level that they're in, right? So it's more kind of broader and higher level. Like for instance, this problem up here is algebraic thinking. We give this to all students 3 through 8, but it's a conceptually it's pretty advanced, but in terms of computationally, if they understood what to do, a third grader could reasonably add and subtract these numbers here. So
so Math Annex would actually be the same test every time, and you're just checking to see if the kid moves up in their comprehension of the test itself, right? Because it's not based on units or at what point in the year you're at, or is it?
yeah, so it does change over time. That's a really good question. So for instance, coming into third grade, they won't know how to do multiplication necessarily. So instead of testing them on multiplication in the beginning of the year, we would do sequential addition, for example. So just to understand the idea of multiple values, right? And then they would go on to learn multiplication throughout third grade. And then by the end of third grade, we'll actually, this test will actually include multiplication problems. Yeah, so.
I know that I always keep in mind that a 10-minute presentation should suffice. And I know we've gone far past that. But this, although it was just summer school, it encompassed a lot of things that is influencing our practices throughout the school year. So I wanted you to hear from teachers. I wanted you to hear from our assessment coordinator so that you could see kind of the holistic view we took of our work this summer. The next 3 slides are just samples of the kind of work that Math Annex provides us after we do a round of assessments. And if you see that little paragraph, it goes in depth into, hey, kids do this, and they do it really well. Where they're not working is in this piece. So here's a mitigation that teachers can try in the classroom to address this missing piece that prevented them from getting to the right answer. I also tried to show, and if you go to the next one, of course, I'm going to show you places where there was significant improvement between the pre and post during that short little instruction time that we have. The last slide is the how can we do better? And I've just listed out some of the reflections we had at the end of the summer, making sure that we're reaching our ELOP families in a variety of different ways, not just depending on email. Again, our hiring process earlier, because we had a phenomenal staff, but I would love the time earlier in the school year to begin this work with them, say in January, instead of coming to you in January, right? So that we can plan and have next summer be even more fruitful. And then expand the enrichment opportunities. Superintendent Silversmith, I do feel one way that I failed you, that she had big visions about how we can leverage the ELOP funds to get some of our kids who don't do, for instance, college visits on a bus on a Friday and visit the multitude of campuses we have around us here in the Bay Area. How can we get them into the city for those cultural experiences that maybe they by choice don't want to, because you can't sell, ooh, let's go to a museum to a 5th grade board generally. But to just leverage those funds to provide those enrichment activities over the summertime. So we come to the very favorite slide that I have, or maybe my least favorite question.
Yeah, go ahead, I've already.
You got, yes. Does anyone else have any comments?
Right, so, I was just.
Oh, you have one.
Yes.
Okay.
Katie knew it. It might be more questions for the superintendent. But was it back in November, maybe we had a board action items, think of programs to targetly improve Latino scores in mathematics. And this program was part of that. Can you or someone here speak to how this program is doing that?
I might actually ask Nate to switch his hat from his assessment hat to his English learner coordinator hat, because the targeting, this fund targets specifically English learners, not necessarily all of our Latinx students are English learners, but a good portion of them are. So Nate, if you could speak to.
Yeah, so in terms of who we invited to this program, you know, it's our English learners, it's a foster youth, and it's our free and reduced lunch or Title I students. And there's a lot of overlap, and just to go over what unduplicated means is if a student is more than one category, they get counted once, not twice, right? So as Katie said, you know, a lot of our Latinx students, not all of them, of course, but are English learners, or potentially reclassified fluent, but in English. But since we blanket targeted our English learner population, a lot of those students ended up in this program. And the idea was to focus on STEAM, and so that included music, which there's a lot of research to show that that helps, with math, and then just kind of engineering concepts and things like that that are related to more applied math concepts. So I don't know if that answered your question.
And I put up the graphic that roughly a third of our ELOP students who attended were Hispanic Latino.
And I can dive a little bit deeper into that. And I don't know if our coordinator of student family and engagement, not to put her on the spot either, but if she'd like to come forward too. So a couple of things that we've done since that November board meeting also is we did hire a coordinator of student and family engagement, Gigi Gonzalez, and we brought her closer into the community too. But we have also really worked with Nate, our coordinator of assessment and special projects, to really do targeted outreach to our community. And we've made sure that our families have priority access to extracurricular. Principal Juan Husen has also helped to support extra support after school at some of our schools to be able to provide after school tutoring at some of the sites. And Milieu, Ms. Cook, they provided after school milieu Zoom tutoring access to students. And Ms. Cook, I know that you provided me the data, and I'm sure I can pull it up on my computer. And I know I did it in a weekly update with how many students actually by grade level even had access to you. And I believe there were three of you that started with 3, went up to 5, because there's a lot of student need. 5 credentialed teachers that were on Zoom on hours for people to be able to zoom in and get our credentialed teachers Zoom access, which was another access for ELOP students. One of the very exciting things that I know Gigi Gonzalez has been working on, and Gigi, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you share what you're working on with regards to students that identify as primary Spanish speaking or our Latinx families, and working with to get a step closer to our families. And you just joined us in what, like March? January? Was it January? Okay. So if you wouldn't mind sharing kind of the stuff that you've been working on with our families with regards to helping to raise some of their test scores, please.
Yeah, sure. So specifically with this program, some of the families have mentioned that maybe at home they don't have the same support as they do at school. So as simple as helping them with homework, parents don't have the sometimes access or the bandwidth to help their students. So, teachers being accessible was a huge help to them this summer. And some families have mentioned a worry or a concern about the students losing their academic information during the summer. It's a long time between June and August to not be doing anything academic. So it's good to keep the students fresh and in an academic setting where they can ask any questions that they have and remain in an academic environment. I have been working, Melody is here, and she's been working with me to engage our Latin families. Melody's from Washington, and so we are going to be doing a Hispanic heritage celebration, just in terms of trying to get the community together so they have a point of contact. We've been emailing resources to a lot of different groups, not just our Latino families, just to let them know we're here. And
when we do that, I get a lot of emails back, not even about what I'm sending out, but just general questions. So I think it's good the community knows that we're here. So we're in contact and we're still figuring it out. But I think we're definitely moving in a good direction.
And Gigi, can you also let the board know one of the things that you're actively looking at helping to support too, if we're able to go forward with evenings with regards to math and music too?
So yes, so we're trying to get some concrete information on doing a mariachi program where it would be like tutoring support for students as well as a parent engagement. So there would be, you know, events for families in terms of how to create an email. If there's any tax preparation information that you might need, maybe some legal resources or, you know, food pantry information, job resources. So this kind of encompasses the full parent and the full community, because it's the parent and the student. And a lot of studies show that when students are tied to an event or, you know, to some sort of sport or something that ties them to the community, their attendance goes up and their academic scores.
And then our students will be learning how to play mariachi instruments at the same time.
I'm
So
sorry, yes,
very-
there's a musical component tied to
So
the.
it'd be a very exciting tie, ideally, to the community. So that is something that we're actively trying to work on too.
I think it's a wonderful program and I thank you for all your hard work. It's really great and I'm really excited for it. Thank you all. Thank you, Katie.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 18.
Oh, no, public comment.
Oh, gosh, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Singer.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Robert Singer. I teach at Franklin and that's a tough act to follow. I occasionally have been known to burst into song during a board meeting, but I will restrain myself tonight. And I was one of the lucky teachers that got to bring theater arts to our young learners this summer. And it was a very rewarding experience for me and I witnessed a high degree of student engagement. And I also want to say that I believe that there's a really strong connection between the arts and social emotional learning. And it's also a great tool for our English language learners. I also had the opportunity last Friday to attend the Arts Education Leadership Summit, thanks to the support of my principal, with a colleague from LinkedIn. And we began to, and I was really pleased to represent our district there. And we began to unpack the intricacies of the Top 28 and VEPA standards, the Visual and Performing Arts standards. And I just want to say that this is something that I am very committed to this year. I feel that since the COVID pandemic and our previous leadership and the adoption of 4 curriculums in 2 years, that the VEPA standards have gotten lost or at least been placed on the back burner. And I think that it's time to start the conversation to restore them. The information that I gained at this meeting, I plan to bring to my principal and then to the soon-to-be VEPA committee that will be starting this year. So I feel committed and passionate about this, and I think that it's time for the conversation to begin. And I hope that we have your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. 18B. Denouncing racism and reaffirming equity through anti-racist actions and commitment resolution.
Good evening, everyone, and President Mudd, Board of Trustees, and Superintendent Silversmith. I bring forward the resolution of denouncing racism and reaffirming equity through anti-racist actions and commitments. This is an important resolution. As you heard before us, our team, everything is interrelated. When we're thinking about anti-racist actions, we're thinking about instruction, we're thinking about parent engagement, community engagement. So this is something that we put a lot of thoughts into, not only reviewing the document itself, there are many language or verbiage within the resolution that we are scrutinized thoroughly to make sure that it is responsive to the current events and then also what we are doing as a district. So I just want to reiterate and underscore how important this is as we are rethinking and reimagining how we are supporting our kiddos and families. So there is one update and change that we would like to make, and did not get into the document itself. So I just want to publicly name that one particular piece of language we want to add is the ongoing violence. This is on paragraph 3. And if you read the resolution, it says the recent killing and ongoing violence against. And the reason we want to put that on there, and just to know that as recent of August 27, there were unfortunate violence against African Americans across the nation. And there are also certain issues that were not brought forward. So this is a commitment of our district, and this is something that we strongly value. And I would like for one of the trustees to read out loud and see if we would approve and affirm this resolution.
Thank you. I didn't ask anyone to read in advance. I thought there were students reading, so I'll read so that I'm not putting anyone on the spot. All right. Burlingame School District denouncing racism and reaffirming equity through anti-racist action and commitments. Whereas since our nation's inception, institutional and structural racism and injustice have led to deepening racial disparities across all sectors of society and have lasting negative consequences for our communities, cities, and nation, robbing countless lives and futures of people of color in the process. And whereas the Burlingame School District Board of Trustees recognizes all human beings are born free, are equal in dignity and rights, and have the potential to contribute constructively to the development and well-being of society. And whereas the recent killing of Black Americans demonstrate the ongoing systemic bias and institutional racism in American society and highlight our nation's history of violence, racism, and disregard for humanity, dignity, and lives of students, families, and communities of color, calling upon us to speak out, take action, and confirm our resolve to work for change and fight for a better world for our children. And whereas dismantling the unchecked institutional racism that abounds in our educational system is a key lever for creating a more equitable and anti-racist community, nation, and world. And whereas racism, racial bias, and bigotry in American schools and communities negatively impacts students of color and their families, often relegating them to school systems with fewer resources and opportunities, and hindering their ability to access and benefit from public education in the same way other students do. And whereas schools have an important role to play in examining and addressing policies and procedures that are racist and hold back students of color instead of nurturing their intelligence and protecting their futures. And whereas our public schools are facilitators of the limitless growth potential of all people, with the charge to instill in our youth a belief that every person deserves to live with dignity, be valued for their humanity, and be treated ethically. And whereas understanding racism, racial injustice, racial inequality in America is integral to understanding both the myth of meritocracy in the United States and the everyday experiences of people of color. And whereas it is essential to teach the experiences, honor the history, and highlight the contributions of Black people through history and/or ethnic studies, while ensuring that every Black person has the social, economic, and political power to thrive. And whereas the COVID-19 pandemic has highlighted the disproportionate physical, mental, and financial toll on Black, Brown, and Indigenous communities. And now therefore be it resolved that the Burlingame School District Board of Trustees stands firmly against bigotry, prejudice, discrimination, and inequality in all forms, both institutional and individual, and wishes to affirm its commitment to the well-being and safety of Black community members and let them know they are not alone and that our district stands in solidarity with them and their struggle for justice. Be it further resolved that the Burlingame School District Board of Trustees will not tolerate racist treatment of any members of our community, and we will speak out against racism and systemic oppression in our society to help stop the spread of bigotry, affirming our commitment to the safety and well-being of our students in combating racial biases, microaggressions, racial profiling, and hate crimes in our government systems and school districts. And be it further resolved, the Burlingame School District Board of Trustees is committing ourselves to eradicating institutional racism in our schools and to eliminating disparities in educational outcomes for students of color. And be it further resolved, the Burlingame School to address the symbols of institutional racism, but also to proactively identify and address biases, practices, policies, and institutional barriers that perpetuate injustice and inequality in our schools and community. And be it further resolved that the Burlingame School District is committed to restorative justice practices, anti-racist training, culturally responsive teaching, and resources that provide safe spaces for discussion on race and injustice. And be it further resolved that the Burlingame School District will work tirelessly and collaboratively with staff, students, and families to dismantle institutionalized racism in our society and school district. Finally, be it resolved, the Burlingame School Board of Trustees clearly and unequivocally affirms that Black Lives Matter. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve 18B, denouncing racism and reaffirming equity through anti-racist action? Thank you, Lauren. Would you like to?
Sure.
Actually, I move with the amendment, Dr. Tang.
Thank you. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, and on to 18C, resolution 2023/24-3, National Hispanic Heritage Month.
Then. So I just want to thank our students who've been so patiently waiting. This is Natalia Tarango. She's a sixth grader at PIS. She's going to be reading the resolution in Spanish. And this is Ernesto Cornejo, who's here to support, as well as Marcos Cornejo in the back. Marcos is in TK and Ernesto is in second at Washington. Is it okay? Do you want to go first? Oh, okay. I'll go first. Whereas American history reflects a determined spirit of perseverance and cultural pride on the part of the Hispanic population in its struggle to equally share in the opportunities of a nation founded upon the principles of freedom and liberty for all people. And whereas the total number of students of Hispanic heritage enrolled in the Burlingame School District encompasses 18% of the total student population. And whereas the total number of students of Hispanic heritage enrolled in public schools statewide encompasses 56% of the total student population. And whereas there are 62.6 million Hispanics in the United States, representing 19% of the population. And whereas the many invaluable contributions of Hispanics to our society are recognized annually during Hispanic Heritage Month. And whereas it is important that the history curriculum in our schools and at every grade level reflects the experiences of individuals of different racial, religious, and ethnic groups, so that each student has the opportunity to understand the common humanity of all people. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Burlingame School District Board of Education and the superintendent encourage to commemorate National Hispanic Heritage Month with the appropriate instructional activities to recognize the significant contributions that Hispanics have made in helping our nation achieve greatness.
Por ejemplo, la historia fue un incidente de refleja un espíritu dedicado de perseverancia y orgullo cultural por parte de la población hispana en su lucha por compartir equitativamente las oportunidades de una nación fundada sobre los principios de libertad para todas las personas. Y por cuanto el número total de Estados Unidos de ascendencia hispana matriculados en el distrito escolar de Burlingame abarca el 18% de la población estudiantil total. Y por tanto, el número total de estudiantes de ascendencia hispana matriculados en escuelas públicas en todo el estado abarca el 56% de la población estudiantil total. Y por tanto que hay 62.6 millones de hispanos en los Estados Unidos, lo que representa el 19% de la población. Y por tanto, las muchas y valiosas contribuciones de los hispanos a nuestra sociedad son reconocidas anualmente durante el mes de la herencia hispana. Y por tanto es importante que el plan de estudios y historia de nuestras escuelas en todos los grados refleje las experiencias de personas de diferentes grupos raciales, religiosos y étnicos, para que cada estudiante tenga la oportunidad de comprender la humanidad común de todas las personas. Ahora, por lo tanto, de resolver que la Junta de Educación del Distrito Escolar de Burlingame y el adelanten en todas las escuelas sobre conmemorar el mes nacional de herencia hispana con actividades educativas apropiadas para reconocer las importantes contribuciones de los hispanos han hecho para ayudar a nuestra nación integral.
You did such a great job reading that, and we were so incredibly patient while we talked about some of the things.
Yes, I just want to thank my students one more time. Thank you guys for coming out. Appreciate you guys.
Coordinator Gonzalez, do you mind telling the board what the plan is for Hispanic?
Yes.
Thank you. And thank you.
Yeah, sorry. We're going to be doing a celebration at Washington. We're going to try to rotate sites, so it's not always at the same school, but the first one will be at Washington on Friday, September 29th. I will send you guys an email with the flyer that was recently confirmed. We're going to have different political dancers. So we're going to have El Salvadorian political dancers and Mexican political dancers, as well as sugar skull painting. There will be music and food and everyone's welcome. So it'll be on Friday, September 29th. We'll send you guys a flyer. And there may or may not be some low rider views.
Low riders. Can you also talk about the books that we purchased?
Yes, we purchased, I think it's 4 for each elementary school. And then EIS will be getting there soon for Hispanic Heritage. And we also asked librarians to pull out their previous ones so that way everybody can see the full Hispanic badge on for our students. Which will have some books at the event as well, but we'll also support students. Great.
Would anyone like to make a motion to adopt resolution 2024-3?
I'll move to adopt the resolution.
Okay. Thank you, Sarah. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, moving on to 18D, first read board policy and administrative regulation on interdistrict transfers.
Thank you. First and foremost, we want to ensure that our board policies as well as administrative regulations support our students as well as staff in our community. So that's our primary goal. And this is one thing, and I just want to share some facts. We currently have 76 interdistrict transfers out of 116 applications this academic year. And we want to make sure that we're thoughtful and mindful as we're reviewing each application. So this is our first reading of for us to have a discussion with this particular policy and administrative regulation. So just want to present that to everyone here. Yes.
Yeah, and staff is not making any recommendations to what was already approved before, right? It looks like it's the same.
It is the same, and I would like to share the process. We looked at and compared with two similar district policies as well as the administrative regulations, and they're very similar, and this aligns with the CSEA version as well. So they are made to, or designed to be written this particular way, so it allows us the flexibility to look at case by case, you know, in a more thoughtful manner. So we did not make any recommendation in terms of the language itself.
We don't have any comments on this side. I think it allows for flexibility.
It's just the first read and we'll come back.
Any comment? Information. Okay, thank you. All right, on to item 19. Okay, summer construction.
Smoke machine. Backup singers.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Richard Tronis, DTA Building Program Manager. Wanted to give you a quick summary of sort of what we did this summer, what we did over our summer vacation. The main activities or the large projects that we were working through were the Student Recreation Center, which for the most part finished out the major construction at the beginning of the summer. But over the course of the summer, we were working through sort of what we were calling the burn-in with maintenance staff, starting up with stocking the building, working through, then when staff came back, sort of the rules and regulations of the use of the facility. So working with Omar and his team on post-construction issues that are still ongoing. A facility this large is always going to have, you know, not only the punch list and warranty items that we're working through with the contractor, because the contractor's on board through their 1-year warranty period for any callbacks on things that are either a defect or some mishap or miscue in the construction. So we're working with them, but also working through, like I said, with Omar and with the teachers as they've moved in, getting them office furniture for their, now that they're back, and so we work with them. The small details, the bookcase here or there, and things like that. So, but the building has finished out nicely. As you know, it's been occupied, it's being used. It's being heavily desired. We're hearing the folks that want to use it. You know, keeping in mind that, you know, not just Parks and Rec, but, you know, other high schools without a gym, for example. You know, we know that they're, you know, if not calling, they're going to come calling. But at any rate, building's working well, and so the project finished out nicely. The contractor was a great partner, working through the design team, HAA, Chad Hamilton and his team were great to work with on finishing out the project. The other project was the HVAC, the air conditioning installations at Roosevelt and BIS. What we're doing at Roosevelt obviously was the major construction, the installation of all of the HVAC equipment, replacement of existing as well as deployment of air conditioning wherever it didn't currently exist there at Roosevelt. So that finished out. We got everything done for start of school. You probably heard, and I think in the weekly updates, we were letting you know that we had a couple of glitches with a couple of units. We had a motherboard that went out on a couple of units. We had another motherboard that went out subsequently. They were able to swap that out quickly with the other unit that we had in stock for BIS. So a couple little glitches like that. The contractor is finishing up on punch list items. They're finishing up on the closeout of the documentation with the Division of State Architect, which is always a process that happens at the tail end of the project. And then also we're doing the prep work for the major construction and installations that are going to finish out next summer. The contractor is really motivated, Rodan Builders, really good partners working with them. They wanted to get a jump on the installations at BIS. That included infrastructure, primarily underground conduit structures to get from one end of the campus to the other, from the new electrical service that's going to go in to distribute to all of the new electric units. They also were installing some concrete pads. We'll probably scroll through the call here. So pictures of the gym. There's the students. Oh, this was a picture from. Sorry, going back. This is a picture of the SRC from when the 8th graders came through. You know, significant disappointment. Wow, we don't get to use this. And now we get to go to VHS, but we don't. You know, so I mean, again, sparkling, brand new, and it's still holding up nicely. And another picture from another view. And then you see some of the other spaces. That's the main concourse down the middle, the studio rooms up there in the upper right that everybody's excited about. I figured we're going to start teaching dance classes, other PE activities. And then if you keep going, here's the now we're seeing the installation. So that's at Roosevelt, the air conditioning units that are in the cages off on to the side of the upper play yard, the units up on the roof. And then some of the, yes.
Can I ask, so, I mean, ACs suck up a lot of energy. So did PG&E have to go in and like give us much more capacity?
Not at Roosevelt. Roosevelt, we had capacity, so we didn't have to do an upgrade at Roosevelt, so fortunately. So one of the things that's happened over time is that at some of the, at all of the school sites, we've gone to more efficient lighting. So we now have new LED lighting, which was an energy efficiency project that happened a few years ago at the Prop 39, and that was at Roosevelt. So we had the power at Roosevelt to be able to install. At BIS, we are having to do an electrical upgrades. So that's one of the reasons why BIS didn't happen this summer as well, because we're waiting for PG&E to do the service upgrade, the switch gear that'll be out front. So
And
yeah, it's
PG&E being pretty cooperative?
For PG&E's, yes, relatively, yes. We had a real dark period where we weren't hearing anything from them for a long time, and Tim Ryan would kept emailing them, not getting good responses. The response was, you know, from our contact was, it's in engineering, I'll check with them and get back to you. That didn't get no response for several weeks. So the good news is we got through engineering, and it gets through engineering, and lo and behold, we get delivery of one 11x17 drawing. That's the engineering that we have to go through. But you know, not a lot of engineering, but just waiting in line to get to somebody's desk to draw the plan. So now we're on track for the new switchgear to arrive early next spring for installation at the beginning of summer, and the PG&E will be doing their thing to increase the power at BIS. So that's Roosevelt, and then over at BIS, you see there's these little concrete pads that are sprinkled all around campus, and folks are probably wondering what are those for. That's in preparation for those condensing units like we did at Roosevelt. That'll be in a cage that's sitting on that concrete pad that will serve the building waste. So these pads that were installed, and again, it was the contractor wanting to do anything that they could this summer to be able to get a jump on the work for next summer. And so now what they're going to be doing at BIS is they are working, and we coordinated with Principal Land. They're going in and they're going to be doing some shift work in the evenings, running electrical conduits, ceilings, And the electrical contractors agreed, we're gonna come in starting at 4 o'clock, work until 11, drop ceiling tiles, run pipes, put ceiling tiles back, clean up, vacuum the next morning, nobody should know that they're there. And they've already started doing that this week. And from Greg's position, Principal Land's position, he was excited. Anything we could do to make this happen faster, he's, all for it. So they're gonna keep doing shift work, they're gonna work over 4th breaks, winter break they'll work, President's Week they'll work, spring break they'll work, and then hit it hard next summer. So those were some of the things that we did. A couple other highlights, just program activities. It was fiscal year closeout, working with the accounting staff, to get all of the invoice processing and payment processing. We were prepping for some stucco repair that we're going to be doing at Roosevelt to try to get that out to bid. Working with Climate Tech for preparation for their construction documents for the HVAC deployment at the other sites, as well as the solar installation that you guys are aware of. Helping Omar and Marla on a deferred maintenance plan that we're going to be bringing to you at some point in the coming months. Preparing for principal meetings for when they got back to talk to them about backpack hooks, some of the furniture purchases that we want to do for their staff lounges. And then close out of past projects, the auditorium at BIS, the Hoover Hillside project, and getting our new badges. So that's sort of what we did over the summer. Questions, comments? Yeah.
Comment, Marlo was pointing out the teachers filled out a thought exchange, and the question was, what would you like to rethink?
Yeah.
And it was just an overwhelming, please bring air conditioning to our classes. So.
Yeah, we had, Carol and I had the benefit of being able to come to the welcome back to all staff that Marla had at BIS. And it was very exciting to see everybody coming back and some teachers and with the idea of what do you want to think about this year as you come back with students, and of course, but the number one thought was air conditioning. So I get it, and I immediately sent that note to Climate Tech, said, guys, the heat is on. We cannot stay out. Heat is on, and so they're probably ready. We just met Marla and I met with the Climate Tech team today to talk about not just the project itself, but how we can help with some learning opportunities with the systems that are going in, some of the learning kits that they will help, that they can provide to each of our sites for 2 or 3 or 4 classrooms. Provide some kits that they can teachers can use for some learning units around solar, and so they're going to help with those. They're going to help us with some PR opportunities. So we may be coming to some or a few of you if you want to talk about a little bit about the solar and the benefits that it has for the community. So real good group that Climate Tech is helping us with some of that PR, which I think is good. I think it would be good to put out that word to the community on what we're doing and why. But yeah, air conditioning is on everyone's mind. So.
Any other comments or questions?
Okay.
Okay. Well, this is oh, you're right. Yes, summary. Okay. All right, then we will move on to 19B, which is voting. District office modernization, access, and HVAC.
Okay, so as you've seen in your board packet, we posted the updated project plans from CAW, the architects. Amy Fisher from CAW was planning to be here this evening. She couldn't make it after all, so she apologized. But at any rate, they provided us with what they call the pricing package of plans that laid out mainly the renovations for the restrooms as well as identified the HVAC work that has to happen, the new exit that's going to be happening out of this room, but also associated with those plans that you may not see specifically in the plans, but as a narrative that was provided to their cost estimator, was other work, new AV for this room, new lighting it where it's critical, new data infrastructure that Curtis is telling us it's critical for this building because of the antiquated wiring that we have here, as well as new workstations out in the office pool area to help for just staff wellness in that area. So the big news, as you've seen, that we're bringing to you is that the project is over budget in terms of the estimate. We have $2.9 million estimate in the hard construction, but in addition to that, we have to budget an additional $600,000 in what we call soft cost or indirect costs, and that's to cover the design, architecture and engineering, permitting through the city, allocating for some moving and relocation expenses to move the office, district office to a new location. So that's the $600K that we have to add to the 2.9, which puts us at about 3.5 million versus a budget that we have currently all in the program of 2.3. So we're $1.2 million over. We talked about it at the owners committee level. We talked about where we might have some discretionary scope. What we did identify, for example, is the AV in this room, the workstations in the office. Those two items, which some could call discretionary, are about $100,000. So that doesn't close the gap, obviously, in terms of the budget, but could be labeled as discretionary. But when we talked at the owners level, I think we all agreed that those items are critical. The AV for the future functioning of this space, and again, the workstation for the well-being of employees and district staff, we think are critical to the project. So bottom line, the conclusion, my recommendation, staff's recommendation is to increase the budget by 1.2 million in order to move forward with the project.
What was the original budget when we were going to move the district office over to BIS?
So when we were going to move the for that project at building 1, we had an all-in budget for that building, which included, if you recall, included the central kitchen. The district office portion of that project was between $4 and $5 million. So we're still under that number, but it's just a big number. And I got to be perfectly honest with you. When we budgeted the project to renovate this building, I under budgeted. I under budgeted, and also didn't anticipate some of the additional work that was going to be needed, like the extent of the data infrastructure, the AV work that we're going to be doing in here, and some of the other scope, and the HVAC scope to get the new units and get the distribution that's necessary. It's coming out more than we were originally anticipating. So, what I think is important for the community to understand is this is the consequence of not having touched this building really for the past 30 plus years or so, which I think honestly, from our experience and from my perspective, working with the building or working with the district for the building programs from measure A, D, M, and now O, and the approximate $300 or so million that have been expended as part of the building program, the dedication has been to the school sites, to learning, to the teaching spaces. There was also some possibility for selling this building. Well, now the consequence of not doing anything here and spending the money where it should go, and I'm not questioning any of that, and I don't think anybody in the community should. The board was making great decisions in terms of where the money should go. But now that the board has decided to keep this building, let's keep it as an asset. So now we have to put some money into this building. Granted, somebody could say, had we redone the toilets 10 or 15 years ago, yeah, it would have been a lot cheaper. Had we redone the HVAC 10 or 15 years ago, it would have been a lot cheaper. But had we put $2-3 million into this building 10 or 15 years ago, somebody would have questioned, well, why isn't that money going to the school sites? So, this is the consequence of where we're at. And so these are the numbers that the estimator is coming up with. And so again, my recommendation is to increase that budget. I do have to say, as a slight caveat, we do have in those soft costs, I've allowed for some moving expenses to relocate the district. I think it's some $20,000 or $30,000 to relocate the district furnishings and relocate them somewhere. But what we don't have allocated is rental costs if we do have to rent space. Our hope is to either relocate. Hope is not a plan, but I say that at our office all the time, so I shouldn't say that here. The thought was to possibly relocate to BIS. One possibility that Marlon and I have discussed with the architects working on building 1 is there is the potential to delay the building 1 project, move the district office to the PLX, renovate this space, and then start the building 1 project. That's one option. But it delays the central kitchen, it delays that project. So that's one option. and could save on rental costs. The other is to talk to several of our community partners, talk to County Office of Ed, talk to the high school district, see if there's any spaces that are available that we could get at little or no cost and relocate there. Yeah, that's necessary. So that temporary gigs to camp out for a little while while this project is ready.
The area that's gonna be the daycare, why can't that be used as?
That's what I'm talking about,
Oh,
the PLX, yeah. No, I meant the PLX portion of that building. What I'm saying is that if we relocate the DO to there while we were renovating this, it would delay that project.
Well, that would still delay the kitchen.
It would still
even if
delay
we
the
weren't
kitchen, yeah,
in
we
that
wouldn't be
area.
able to tear, we wouldn't be able to start tearing apart that building because, remember, a major portion of that project, because we're changing the occupancy, is to seismically upgrade. So,
Yeah, got it. Thank you.
How long
So
is
just
the
one-
renovation?
for this project, it's gonna be about a year. So that's where we're at. Questions? Comments?
I thought there was space in Franklin, no?
There is some space. That's another possibility. I don't know if it would be enough space for all. So there is the possibility of having, satellite locations for maybe IT staff, accounting staff, and staff in different places. I think there are some rooms down in the lower portion of building 3 at Franklin. That would possibly be built.
And the portables of PIS at the top, are they being used?
Yeah, the portables are the maintenance offices and storage and their shop as well as record storage.
I think I already know the answer to this, but at $550 a square foot, I mean, there's no tearing it down and starting over is not gonna be.
That was the first, honestly, trustee, that was one of the first things that came to my mind, but in looking at it, I would estimate that replacing this building in kind construction in this location and working in these conditions, we're probably looking at $5+ million. We're probably looking at close to $1,000 a square foot, if we were to replace it. But that was an immediate question that left to my mind in looking at the numbers from their architects consultant.
Questions? All right, would anyone like to make a motion to approve district office modernization access and HVAC?
I'll motion to approve.
A second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you. I'm sorry. I've already voted. One last note, it doesn't affect this. So, one last note, I do want to let you know that we are working with the architects on the restroom design. It was an issue that came up, trustee DuBois, at the owners meeting. The layout of the restrooms, we have the common gender neutral layout. We may not be able to go forward with that plan based on the city's interpretation for area. This is literally hot off the presses as of this morning. So we might have to, regardless of staff's preferences, likes, wants, desires, we might have to go to a gender specific men's and women's traditional layout for the rest of the spaces. It'll still be the same costs because we're still replacing, blowing out the restrooms the way they are now and putting in new. It's just a matter of what layout we would have to land on. So I just want to let you know that will be coming back to you. And probably certainly back with the owners for an update on the layout.
Am I correct in that we have you for one more agenda?
Yes.
All right, moving on to item 19.
So on this one, we wanted to give the board some talking points of what we're finishing out and what's forthcoming. I do have one minor correction. The last bullet, digital marquee signs on tranche 1, and the first bullet on tranche 2 is the same project. That's a vestige of when we thought the digital marquees were going to be tranche 2. We moved them up to the tail end of tranche 1. So it's just a repeat. But nonetheless, the projects that are finishing out under tranche 1, again, are the FRC, basically the final retention release, working with the contractor on the lease back contract. And then the same thing for the BIS auditorium. It's closing out that project and releasing the final payments to the contractor. The BIS and Roosevelt HVAC that we just talked about, that is going to continue. This project, the district office, is going to now move forward into the construction documents. And the BIS admin building, the exterior envelope repair. If you recall, we were putting out to bid a project to do some destructive, or what I'm calling investigative testing with the contractors. We ended up getting 4 contractors at that bid walk. We got 4 bids. We just received them today. Good news is they came in right at the low bids. Low bid came in right on budget, $40,000 to open up the fuse section wall. That investigative construction and opening up the building is going to allow the architect CAW to move forward with what has to happen to repair the exterior shell of that building. So once that destructive testing will occur beginning of October, and then that'll allow the design documents to proceed. The digital marquee signs, we have an electrical engineer now on board for about $6,000 to design the electrical data that has to be run out to each student, not data, the electrical power out to each digital marquee. And so we're going to get those documents from the electrical engineer with the installation happening later this year and early next year at each of the schools. Tranche 2 is the new solar canopies at the multiple sites, which are in the construction documents phase. Climate Tech has submitted those plans to the Division of the State Architect for review. The added air conditioning at the remaining sites. I do want to point out that there is air conditioning existing at various sites and various locations. So this project is to complete the air conditioning and replace the air conditioning at the various sites. So for example, at Franklin, if you've been out there, half of those classroom buildings have air conditioning. Sides of the building face south and southwest towards the sun angles. For whatever reason, back in the 1990s, they put in air conditioning in half of the buildings, but didn't put it in the rest of the buildings. So this project is going to replace the existing and add new where it didn't exist before.
Can you remind me what's the order of air conditioning? I know Roosevelt, EIS are complete, but if a mast on the street, what's?
Honestly, you don't have that information yet.
Okay.
So
It's all going to happen.
because we don't have it. What we heard from Climate Tech today, though, was their goal, their aim is to put it all in next summer. So basic answer is 2020, summer 2024. It's going to go in and all this is, yeah. I think it's safe to say that that's the intent.
That's the goal.
Yeah, because what's going to happen, and we just talked to Climate Tech about this today. What's going to happen is that the project for solar and for HVAC are uncoupled. So they've submitted the plans for the HVAC to the Division of the State Architect. So even if the solar can't install, for example at McKinley, we have to get the portable out of there. We have to build a new TK in order to get the old portables out of there to put the solar canopy where it's going to go, right? But that doesn't stop us from putting in the HVAC into the MPR that we want to put in at McKinley because it's 2 separate projects. So similarly at the other sites, regardless of when and how long the solar might take, we can still proceed with the HVAC work.
Can it be turned on or would we have to wait?
No, it can be turned on. It can be turned on. The solar power is just going to help save power, but we do have the power capacity to install it that way. The other factor is well, that was it. The other factor is we don't need the solar power in order to be able to run the HVAC. So they've already purchased the equipment. Climate Tech, because it's a design build project, it's not like we have to wait for a contractor to come on board to bid the project. They've already designed the mechanical equipment. We've had an independent mechanical engineer review their plans and their specifications, and they're moving forward. They've already purchased the equipment. They're going to start receiving it, so it's going to be ready to install by next summer. So that's what they're saying.
And our biggest barrier for the solar is really the McKinley TK. That's the biggest.
Yeah, that's really the only one.
That is like the biggest.
Yeah, that's really the only one where we might have some delay on solar. Right. Which is the next project. The next bullet is the new TK classroom building at McKinley, which is in the design process. The architects are working on the building layout. We are going to have to come back to the owners with a slight shift in the building, because as you may have seen or heard in our weekly update, I think I had it. There's an easement that the surveyors have discovered, unbeknownst to anybody. Nobody has ever had it in any of the surveys, any of the documents that we've seen. There's a utility easement that cuts across the corner at Oakland and El Camino Real, because there's a large storm drain pipe, as it turns out, a 52-inch storm drain pipe that runs through that corner. Building's going to have to shift a little bit. We've already informed Marla and Joy. We're going to go back to them, show them the layout. We'll go back to the owners. We'll go back to them. So that's making TK, new central kitchen and district daycare at BIS. That's the one project that is moving forward. And so their architects are working on the design documents for that project. There's a new turf and garden replacement at McKinley. We're going to reach out to Calendar Associates, who is the landscape architect who did the same turf project at Roosevelt. If you've been there, they can design the same project for McKinley. So we're going to reach out to them for a proposal for that project. And then there's the new main entry and admin improvements at Franklin. We had a pre-proposal walkthrough with the architects that are in the pool. All 5 architects showed up for that pre-proposal walkthrough this afternoon. I showed them the scope of the project to relocate the entry at Franklin. So we're going to be receiving proposals from them in early October, and then move forward with the design work with Jude, Marla, and ultimately coming to the owners. And then lastly is TK play area at Franklin, which is a Charge 2 project, because they already have TK classrooms at Franklin, but they're lacking in some play areas. So we need to find a location for get some play space for it. So that's what's forthcoming.
That little playground behind the TK right now isn't for them.
That one is in there for the TK that's upstairs, but if they want to ever have another TK down at the bottom of Wing 3, our understanding is that they might put a TK classroom down there. We need to get some play space for them down at that lower level. So those are the projects that are forthcoming. Again, we wanted to give you guys a bulleted list so that you had it at your fingertips if you want to ask what's next. So that question. Okay. Yeah, that was informational. Okay, thank you.
Sarah, really quickly while we're just talking about the books, really potentially. So in December, we will be festival and the two communities. So one of the communities is going to and if you ever wanted to be, if you ever just wanted to go to a meeting, I'm sure that everybody would be open to that. Just have it for one. Very important to get into what happened.
And in that regard, another talking point, something that we talked about at the owners committee was having a list of improvements to date, dating back to measure A, B, M, and now O. So Lori at our office is pulling that list together. We had done one previously under measure O. So she's updating it for M and what we've done for O. So we'll have that for you guys. So that's how it is. Okay. Sure. Thank you.
Fiscal year 2022-23 unaudited action.
There. Good evening, everyone. My name is Partnerships, and I have the honor and privilege of walking through your FY 22-23 unaudited actuals. But I wanted to just take a moment to say thank you to the fiscal folks who helped get us here. Cynthia Shea, who led the effort, and Danny Bella Gala, and Don Pugh, who were deep in the nitty gritty to make sure that we could close books. So in your board packet, you have a memo that walks us through estimated actuals to unaudited actuals. That's the walkthrough we choose because the last time the board had an opportunity to review the books was at estimated actuals. That's when you adopted the budget back in June. For just information's sake, I like to show from just a walk through the adopted budget, first interim, second interim. If you had a third interim, I would have added a third interim. That way you just have the information in front of you. And I just want to highlight some of the changes from estimated actuals to unaudited actuals. So one, the CNLCF on the revenue side. That's a minor change, about $242,000 total. You'd like to see really small changes there. LCFF is your primary funding source, it's your primary funding stream. And so we'd like to be really good at calculating what it's going to be. And so that's a highlight for us. On the federal side and state side, we have some adjustments there that are based on final grant awards, as well as it's an accounting technique called unearned income, where we essentially have to adjust the amount of revenue we show for these federal and state grants. Please know the dollars are not lost. They just become an asset and then we'll get to spend them in the current year. So between now and the first interim, we'll recognize those dollars again. You'll see them in the budget again. And come first interim, you'll see an increase in the revenue. that matches. And then on the other local revenue side, we had just additional dollars that came in, personal taxes, interest income, as well as some uses, rental dollars that came in for that. For the district. On the expenditure side, we saw more adjustments, for greater size adjustments from estimated actuals to unaudited actuals. I'll highlight just a few of them. On the unrestricted side, the big one was a decrease of about $1 million in what we set aside for retiree benefits. So that was there. And that was essentially offset by some increases that we had in textbooks, as well as employee compensation, and utilities as well. Just as our utility budgets have been going up at home, they go up at our schools as well. On the restricted side is where we saw some, so about a total of $3.4 million decrease in restricted expenditures. That becomes carryover. So that would be another adjustment we're going to see between now and the first comes up. Those carryover balances will get budgeted, and our school sites and departments will have an opportunity to spend down some of those dollars. And I'll in a couple of slides, I'll show you some of that detail. A couple of other shifts or adjustments that helped our bottom line. We had a slightly smaller interfund transfer out to our Fund 17, our special reserve for other than capital outlay. And we also saw a reduction in the contribution level that was required for special education and RMA. And so that also helps our bottom line. Combined for the school district, what we see is an ending fund balance of $7.8 million. And there you have the components of the ending fund balance. Your reserve level is net at that 1.5 million. There you can see on the restricted side, we've got it up at 5.346. So that 5.346 becomes carryover that we will budget between now and slightly middle of October, so that we can start spending those dollars down after we assess them. I also included here for you the balances we have in Fund 17. Between now and the first interim, another place we're going to spend a little time thinking about is how to ensure that the state requirements on our reserve level are that we meet all the requirements. And so for first interim, we've gotten some guidance from the County Office of Education on some of the steps they'd like to see us take. And so we'll be taking those so that by first interim, we're all set, and we're sure to satisfy their requests. Here is that detail of that $5.3 million in the restricted balances. You can see the bulk of them are in 3 items and 3 resources: the Expanded Learning Opportunities Program, the Arts and Music, and then the Learning for Recovery Emergency Block Grant. So those are those 3 there for significant amount of that $5.2 million. Here we have a summary of your other funds. The only ones I'll make note of here is that we'll have to make some changes to is Fund 35. So Fund 35 is very minimal activity. That's one we can probably go ahead and close out. And so we'll plan on putting together a board item for the board on that one. And then we'll also be asking the board to create one more fund, and that's Fund 71. Fund 71 would be the fund. It's a retiree benefit fund. And so it's where we'll record the asset for the irrevocable trust that the board has created to fund our open liability. So we'll be bringing that forward to the board as well. So what's coming up in the near future for the board, we can expect an approval letter from the County Office of Education for your LCAP and your adopted budget. So we actually got to see it drafted. Spoiler alert, it's been further approved, which is great news. We are, now that we've closed books, we'll be handing over some of that information to the independent auditors so they can start doing some of their work, and we scheduled to come and visit us in October.
And then the last thing I'll note that we're working on is what we're calling budget development 2.0. It's in preparation for first interim, and it's an opportunity to just go in, we're going department by department to look at positions, school site by school site to look at positions, as well as your non-personnel lines, just to ensure your budget is nice and tight. And so for first interim, working with Ami on position control, and the rest of your team to make sure that by the time we get to first interim, we've got a good solid budget for you. And that is it. Happy to take questions. Happy for all the questions you've already asked. I'm happy to take them.
Thank you for getting us to this point. And, yeah, appreciate it.
And for the timing. Enormous.
I don't have any questions, only gratitude for all the great work you've done. Thank you to you and your team.
Would anyone like to make a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, okay, and 19E, resolution 20.
This is the Gann limits. Included within the unaudited actuals that you just approved is a form called Form Gann. And this is essentially a calculation we have to do every year. That essentially gets to, it's an attempt to constrain spending based on what's happening in the population. I don't know how well the Gann limit actually works, but it's a calculation we have to do, and so we do it. And the requirement is in addition to the form that we've already approved as part of the unaudited actuals of the resolution.
Questions before we move it to vote? Would anyone move to make a motion to approve the resolution? Yeah.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Twenty A is the SBA nominations for director. With either you or Lauren be able to give a little background on where they and
Well, I believe this position that they're looking for is the director at large who would be a representative for the Black community, I believe, for this position. So what they're just looking for is any nominations that we have.
And typically it would be like you're nominating someone on your board.
Usually that's how it is, but if for some reason, like someone from the public or somebody, you guys have worked with through just some other kind of inter district kind of teams or whatever, know of someone who would fit the criteria to be this particular director at large, if you wanted to take the nomination, now's your opportunity, but you don't, then we just move on, right? We have this nomination.
It's currently looking for African American. They're currently looking for African American and American Indian attachment status.
Does anyone have anyone that they want to? So if in the event that we don't have anyone to nominate, would we still vote? Oh, please, okay. Then I'm going to move on to 21, human resources and employment of the interview. Thank you, Ami.
You like right? Click next. This one will go forward and this one's backwards.
Good evening, everyone. How are you guys today? My name is Ollie, and I am a research director. And tonight I am going to be presenting the exit interview followed by the short-term staff limit. The first reputation with that instant interview that I conducted. That I conducted between May and mid-August of this year. And the survey included employees, 32 former employees, excuse me, 16 out of the 32 former employees completed the form. And out of the employees who completed the form, 12 were males, 4 were females, 12 were certificated, and 4 were classified. And I'm just gonna go, I'm not gonna go over all the 20 of the questions, so I'm just gonna highlight some of the questions. And one of the questions was, what prompted your resignation? And 2 were non-reelect, 2 shared the mental health, 5 shared personal reason, 1 shared feeling of unfair treatment, 2 shared better compensation, 1 stated their spent caseload spent in special education, and 1 shared that they were relocating. And I shared some of their notes, stress both at home and at work. My husband got a new job, so we are moving, and 1 was offered a higher position elsewhere. Question 2 was factors contributed to the decision to leave. Number 3 was the question, what were the most important factors in your deciding to take a new job? Was the salary, benefits, time off? Please explain the answers. 2 non-reelect, 1 personal reasons, 7 stated salary. 1 was a completing opportunity, 1 shared unfair treatment, 1 shared location, and another shared their special education placement. And then just to let you know, it might look the same, however, like for the special ed caseload, they're from different employees. And some of the codes that they shared. More money was offered, desk job better than a health needs higher title. The 5th question, would you recommend BSD to friends, families, colleagues for potential employment opportunities? 11 said yes, 5 said no. When asked, did you feel you were recognized for your work or efforts toward organizational development? If not, how do you think recognition could be improved? Please give examples to your answer. 9 stated yes, 4 stated no, and 1 was mixed. And some of the quotes were, no, hardly ever. I'm unsure how to improve this, but I've worked hard and no one ever really said anything until I resigned. Another one shared, yes, I got good feedback when it came to my work and always felt valued and appreciated by my coworkers. Another shared, yes, this last year, our admin went to our classrooms often, which definitely made me feel supported and recognized for my hard work. Question 10. Did you feel you were given adequate resources to succeed in your role? If not, how could it have been better? You would give examples to your answers. 8 says yes, stated yes, 7 stated no, 1 was mixed. The quote, yes, everything I needed as far as office supplies, fidgets, empowerment materials, etc., were always provided in a timely manner. Yes, there were usually enough resources, especially if I asked. I can't stress this enough. We need more intervention specialists, aides, and behaviors at each site. Question 13, how would you describe the culture of BSD? Please be detailed and give examples. 10 stated that they had positive experience, 1 stated negative, 2 stated mixed, 1 stated unwelcomed, and the quotes. I think this past year has been most inclusive culture of BSD that I have seen in my past 5 years of being here. At the beginning years, it felt like a huge divide, but now we feel seen, supported from the district office. BSD is extremely welcoming and very quick at providing necessary support or resources, strong teacher present and strong counseling team as well. The culture of BSD is incredibly negative and demoralizing. No matter how hard we work or how many obstacles we encounter at once, I was disrespected. How would you describe your work environment at BSD? Please be detailed and give examples. 8 positive, 3 negative, 2 mixed. The quote, great. There was trust, cooperation, risk-taking, support, accountability, and growth mindset was always present. The staff was welcoming, but I felt a bit isolated. I was the only class on a different schedule and missed out on weekly meeting that the rest of the staff had. I had a wonderful classroom. It had high ceilings, the lights worked, and the Wi-Fi worked for the majority of the year. This is the first time that the Wi-Fi has been this good. My 4 years prior, I would assume the Wi-Fi would stop working every single day, so this was a great improvement this year. I did not have to wait long for custodial or maintenance requests, which was wonderful, as my room had constantly had cockroaches in it. That would be my only big negative. With that comment, I did connect with Omar, our facility maintenance coordinator, and he did share with me that every month we do have someone to go out to each site to communicate.
I see it in their vendor report.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Question 16, describe your working relationship with your administrator. Please be detailed. 10 positive, 1 negative, 2 mixed. I had a positive relationship with our previous 2 principals. I have no relationship with our current principal. My site administrator is amazing. She made me feel supported, valued, and respected. I could easily go on for pages for specifics. She was there for me and gave me much advice about administration and handling certain situations that I may face as a principal. She trained me very well. My relationship with the admin was professional. We worked extremely well together and helped each other balance the business of the school. The principal was an excellent admin to work with, and the change she was making at the school was going to be great. Question 18, did you feel BSD's policies were adequate and clearly communicated? Please explain the answers. 8 stated yes, 5 stated no, 1 was not applicable, and 1 was unsure. Yes, whenever I had a question, I could always email. I could always or email someone for an answer. No, everything at the beginning was glossed over so quickly and not handed to me. I think they could be more clear, especially for new teachers. My first year here, I was definitely breaking the contract by having different hours and overworking and having the same early days off of time. I didn't know better, but I wish I had had an ally in my corner. Question 20, what have you found to be positive about the organization? Please be detailed. Constructive feedback, 1. Not applicable, 1. Positive relationship, 9. Positive changes, 1. Compensation, 2. Communication, 1. Inclusivity, 1. Overall, I've seen positive changes in the past year. This seems like the district office is more focused on making changes that will serve students and teachers rather than the bank account. Overall, I feel the organization as a whole really does a good job connecting everyone and making you feel like you're a part of one community. There is a lot of constructive feedback I can give, but I don't feel I was treated well this past year, so I'm not motivated to share. Question. Do you have any questions or comments or anything you would like to share that you didn't have a chance to share while at BSD? They said no. The quotes, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to work at BSD. I will forever remember my time here with fond memories. And if I am ever fortunate enough to be living back in the area, I would love to work for the district again. I appreciate the support from the EBA and from HR this year. I shouldn't have been offered this job when the district wanted an MFT or social work for the position long term. I felt I was misled and I was not given the support they mentioned in the interview. I worked with some nice people this year and have loved my students, but also dealt with a lack of kindness and support. I think I wrote something. Thank you for reading this. I want to thank BSD for taking the chance with me and providing me the opportunity to grow professionally. No, I had a great experience and hope that I will be welcomed back to the district in the future. It is a wonderful district and community, and I hope that the SPED students continue to get more resources. Our BCBA is too few for how many students and for how many schools and students BSD has. There should be multiple BCBAs to ensure all students are well served. Do you have any questions in regards to the executive?
EBA behaviorist?
Yes.
Board certified behavior analyst.
I think it's wonderful, all the data, but I don't have an HR background. So could you tell me why is HR solicit this and what do you do with it?
Yes, so the overall plan for the exit interview is so that we can improve and to assess the overall experience of our employees and also will help identify opportunities to improve retention and engagement. And it will also help us for hiring and reviewing patterns of how we will hire for new employees that best match our hiring needs. So not so no.
I was just curious, it struck me that only 4 females responded. And I was just curious like, what the format of the exit is going to be like. I think you said Google Form.
It was, yes, okay. it was a Google Form.
Do they have the option for it to be anonymous, or would that not make sense?
Yes, they did. They had, and that was the reason why they were honest and gave the feedback that they did, because I did let them know that it was going to be anonymous, that I wasn't going to share out the information of the name attached to it. So they were more forthcoming.
Their names are not attached.
Yes, when I present, yes, correct. When I presented the information to the public and to the board. And when you do that, so when you do given that opportunity, and there is an and when it is anonymous, they are more honest versus if you didn't.
Yeah, I was just gonna comment, I actually thought it was quite positive, considering these are the people that left and voted with their feet for one reason or another, and a lot of it's personal and better opportunity, better salary, et cetera, but I take it as a whole, it's really very positive about the culture and what we have going on here. I think we did also request this because of all the turnover, so I find this very helpful, so thank you.
I was also struck by 12 of the people who responded come back.
This is the overall theme was salary. They had positive relationship with their colleagues and administrators as well as positive experience.
Thank you, Ami. That was very thorough and interesting to read.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're doing the 21 human resources short-term staff permit.
Yes, the STIP. So you were provided with the information in your board doc. Are there any questions you have regarding the short-term staffing permit process STIP?
Would anyone like to make a motion to approve the short-term staff permit?
I'll move to approve.
Is there a second? You all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, and I made it today. They're time for charms. Do I stay? Or, okay, good. I should be one of them.
All right, and public statements related to non-agenda items. There are none of that much. And moving on to board requests for the items. Good night. Good night. I have a couple of board requests. Read on. The first is we did not approve on our calendar any study session for a board workshop date. I just wanted to see if everybody was prepared to have any questions about it.
What topic?
So the board workshop would be, it's something that we actually do annually, and it's just good practice, it's sort of like what we did last year and this program, where we just kind of so my thought with this board workshop, and we tossed around ideas was, well, let me go back to another. The other board requested item I had was the governance for, which is a book that you'll get at AC. And it talks a lot about like, what is governance, governance, etiquette, the relationship between the superintendent and trustees. It just kind of goes over all of the sort of the framework of the relationship. And it's not a long book, but it's very well written and well respected. And San Mateo Unified recently with their board meetings where every month or like a couple months, they read at home, they read a few chapters, and then they came to the board meeting kind of 5 minutes just talking about what they read. So the thought was we could do that in our board meeting. And then after we finish that as our board workshop, after AUC in January, and use that as a springboard to talk about some of our protocols and norms of the board, especially now that we're a new board. And yeah, just use that as a time to sort of realign how we operate as a board. Second one, which would be a study session. Study sessions can be on a variety of topics. Like somebody who's very interested in enrollment, question beyond enrollment. Another topic would be like Marla has new superintendent and plans that she probably wants to share that. That, but I mean, a study session can be. So I'm proposing that we get one on that. And it's just good practice to have those terms to dig in a little bit deeper into it. So it could be on Saturday, it could be Tuesday night, it can be whatever works. In the past, we've done it on a Saturday morning. And that one we talked about some important budget cuts that we need to make. We talked about communication lines and protocol. But I feel like it might be something good for us to do, since we have a new superintendent, or the board.
I'm definitely supportive of the board protocols and figuring that out. I kind of think of the study sessions as needed, so I don't know, do we have the calendar right now, or do we have something that we need specifically need to address? I'm not all for it, I just don't know.
Well,
We need to schedule that now or later.
if we want to have a more robust conversation about a topic, we should kind of schedule it later, but do we like the opportunity to sort of share with us some of your goals in the next couple years?
I think that one of the things we could do with the study sessions is lay out kind of going forward. It would be a great time to discuss kind of planning out what it could look like with regards to 3-year. We want to do a strategic plan. We're looking at laying out board goals, what that could look like to be able to have the 5 of you come together and be able to have that conversation together. That would be the.
Why can't we do it in a regular board meeting?
We could, but I think that it would be a time where we could just focus on that and not feel like we have 30 minutes or 15 minutes. It's an idea where you would have time to come together and have an allotment of like 2 hours to talk about. If we wanted to look at doing a strategic plan, or if we wanted to look at doing something bigger, and not feel like, okay, now we need to go on to bond, or now we need to go on to the next component.
Another resolution, right?
Because typically when you look at doing something larger and begin to start to talk about what we've been, if we wanted to look at laying the groundwork to do something like that, then you set up a timeline to even plan for that. It does take a lot more work to talk about what the priorities would need to put that together.
Is it a public meeting?
It's a public meeting, but the public.
Is it broadcast?
It can be, but a study session is just to talk about that one item. That's where you would just talk about one thing. But everything's about that one thing versus talking about, okay, let's talk about consent items and let's talk about other items too.
It gets posted as an agenda in a public meeting. I think we did one on negotiations last year.
Right, we did go on negotiations. Florence, historically in Burlingame, what have they been, when you've done around things, have they been?
So way back when I started, we had 2 meetings a month, and it was always like every other one was supposed to be a study session, which I didn't quite understand because we were voting on things. I mean, it ended up being just like real board meetings, every time, but but they were already preset meetings but then it was supposed to be every other business session. So that was a full schedule in here. Anybody could come, it's just like this. It would look the same. But one topic.
Where I've seen them useful is it's like it is one topic where you go in depth and you dive deeply into one area and have kind of like, what are the board's thoughts about something for the next 3 years? What do we really want to really look at to work towards for the next 3 years, so that I guess on my mind is kind of a strategic plan. Like, where is it that we all want to really go towards, and is that something that we want to spend time and then say these are where we want to invest our resources and everything for us to build our LCAP and everything else around. That's where it's my thought.
So Lisa, what's your proposed topic? I'm sorry.
Well, my proposed topic for the board workshop would be resetting work and getting back into a groove of this. For a study session, it's up to we can talk about a different topic. I'm proposing we haven't superintendent what happened yet. We haven't had a chance to put that with there. Some of their ideas, sit down, deep dive into she wants to lay out.
Like, but, you know, so board requested item is usually something that we're gonna put on an agenda. That we
So you
want.
think it doesn't, it's a doodle that goes out?
Like, usually we would have just done this offline.
Yeah.
You don't need to have it agendized to like
Right.
add meetings.
Okay.
You know,
So. We can send that on. I actually have had this conversation previously and just sort of decide that we just keep it at a time to be on the calendar. So I have a conversation about that. All right, well. Here. Would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn?
a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
No, I think we do. Do we?
Who's seconded? I'm sorry, I missed it.
Sorry, I went.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.